Hi, Becky.
Hi. Welcome back to Hold That Thought. I want to hear about your trip to Utah.
Yes, I went to Utah, Park City this past weekend for a friend's bachelorette, and it was really wonderful. It's so great when you are integrated with a group of people. I only knew really the bride really well, but like the rest of the group, I'd met a few of them a fair amount of times, and most of them I'd never met before. So it really was cool to be in a space where everyone is from different walks of the bride's life. Everyone doesn't really know each other per se, but the instant camaraderie that's felt was really cool.
Such a testament to Nellie's energy. Like she attracts that kind of person.
So true. And it was really fun. We went dancing Saturday afternoon and...
What kind of dancing?
DJ dancing. Well, we actually did two types of dancing. We did line dancing.
Okay.
So much fun. I got really into it and really wanted to be good at it.
Yeah.
And then there are lots of videos.
Who was the best?
Nellie was actually so good.
She looked so cute.
She was really good. And the joke is that now we're going to do one of those dances at the wedding to surprise people, which you might just be lucky enough to see.
I hope so.
How was your weekend?
Mine was good. Not much to write home about, except speaking of Nell, because she came to Tahoe with us the other weekend as a hosting gift, she gave me this game that I had been eyeing for a while called Candid, which is a deck of cards in this tin. I saw it on TikTok. I think that's kind of where they're doing a lot of their marketing. It was this couple who I believe like fell in love making the game.
That is a really good marketing story, and I hope it's
such
true.
a good marketing story. And even if it's not,
true.
Love them. Each playing card has a different question to get to know someone. First of all, the name is awesome. Candid, such a cute name. The exterior of the tin is so cute. The cards are adorable, and they have really great questions. I was at a bar with some friends, and we all went around and answered those questions and honestly got kind of hammered and
fun.
It was just really fun. And it was also a lot of peripheral guy friends who I don't know as much about, and they were really vulnerable. It was really sweet.
So Candid did exactly what it's designed to do.
Exactly.
Give us an example question. Yeah. Oh, I remember one of them. What is a smell that reminds you of your childhood home? Wasn't that one?
Oh, yeah.
That was a good one.
So good.
That brought up some sweet conversation the weekend before.
Great game. Love them.
I have a fear that my friends from childhood are going to remember my childhood home from the smell of cat litter.
From Tinker and Bella?
From Tinker and Bella. But we can't get back on cats.
No, we can't. In fact, my boss who listened to this was like, a little less of the cat stuff.
I think he said a little less of the upfront, i.e. cat stuff. So funny.
We'll wrap this up soon, but I do need to know how you liked Project Hail Mary. If you haven't seen that movie, you must. It's amazing. It
was one of the most entertaining 2.5 hours I've experienced in a very, very long time. It was so funny. Ryan Gosling is an incredible actor. For wide swaths of the movie, it's just him interacting with this other extraterrestrial being, which I don't think this gives anything away because I watched the trailer. It literally says all this.
I would say skip ahead if you don't want spoilers.
If you don't want spoilers. It was so funny. It was touching. It's more about the relationship between two beings from different universes than anything else. The thing that kept popping into my mind, and then I want to hear what your thoughts were, was when we first meet in the movie this extraterrestrial being and it looks the way it looks, which was scary for me at first because I have a fear of spiders, and there was an element
the tap.
It's made to look like stone, so that's why his nickname becomes Rocky. The texture of its skin and the fact that it doesn't have a face, and he doesn't have a face, and that it looks like a spider was really hard for me at first.
Very bold decision on their part to have him not have a face.
But I think they did that on purpose because I think they were trying to challenge the fact that we think faces are normal. We think humans mean intelligence. In the movie, he's supposed to be more intelligent and have a higher brain processing speed than humans. And I think it was a really smart choice of them to challenge our assumptions that like humans are intelligent and we look like this way.
Did you notice in the final scene that he doesn't need to use a translator?
Yeah.
So sweet.
He's
fluent in whatever that...
Iridian.
Freak.
What were your thoughts? Biggest takeaways?
I mean, ditto to everything you said. The only value I can add here is that I think they did humor really well. And I think I've had trouble finding the humor of a lot of recent movies appealing. Our friend Claire there and I have this running joke because we see a movie twice a month, maybe once a month. But every time we are leaving the theater, we're like, another dud. because we can't seem to find one that we love. We lamented that we hadn't seen Hamnet together because that would have been a total win for us.
Totally.
But this was the first one where we walked out and been like, amazing.
A+. Yep.
A+.
And walking out of the theater, everyone was talking about it, which
I
you
know, I love that part.
is a telltale sign of a good movie.
Yes.
So go see Project Hail Mary. Okay, so this is the next episode in our miniseries In Plain Sight. And today we are talking about the U.S. Postal Service.
Yes. I know you've all been dying to know about it.
And I do want to say that one of our fans, my mom, has actually been dying for us to do this episode.
Of course. It is interesting.
It is a vast machine that is ongoing behind the scenes of our day every single day across our country. And I've never really sat to think about how do they get that done? Wow. We're doing this episode on the 250th anniversary of the U.S. Postal Service.
Wow.
Oh, it was last year.
Okay.
We are doing this episode on the 251st anniversary of the Postal Service.
Who else can say that?
So just to give you a sense of this machine that's ongoing behind the scenes every single day, there are 371 million pieces of mail, including packages, delivered each day.
321 million.
371 million.
371 million.
Yes.
Wow. By just the USPS.
Just USPS. I'm just talking USPS. The Postal Service has 235,461 routes across the United States today. 44% of the world's mail volume is processed by USPS.
Wow.
44%. Yes, we have a massive mail system.
Yeah.
The newest Postmaster General, who became PMG in the summer of 2025, which actually was PMG. He said, "It's a beautiful ballet and no one understands it."
Oh.
Which was, no one does understand it, but it is all around us every day. So in plain sight. Another interesting tidbit is that of all the government agencies, the USPS has the highest approval rating.
Wow.
At 56%.
My gosh.
But of all, and it's been this way consistently since 2007.
Yeah.
Amidst all the ups and downs. And in 2025, 96% of respondents in a Gallup survey said they believe the mail service is important to their families. Final thing I'll say about this beautiful ballet is that since the early days, the USPS has been operating under what it calls a universal service obligation, which is a federal mandate that everyone gets a right to their mail and that USPS is required to deliver to every single mailbox or PO box 6 days a week.
Wow.
Required. Federal mandate. And they called it this universal service obligation. It's quite lofty if you think about it.
Indeed. As I was researching the Postal Service, I came across some info about the Royal Mail in the UK, which is kind of their equivalent. And you talking about the approval rating being so high reminded me of this quote I found. It was from someone's Substack. They were quoting Rory Sutherland, who tells a story about the Royal Mail. On paper, they were doing brilliantly. Their first-class mail was being delivered the next day, 97% of the time. A piece of paper dropped into a red box in London, traveling the length of the country overnight, arriving in Edinburgh before breakfast. Customer satisfaction didn't correlate, though, with reliability at all. The main factor was whether customers liked their local postie. That's the term they use for it.
That's what they call postmen?
Yes.
And women?
Areas with a less reliable service, but a friendly, warm postman or postwoman often had higher satisfaction than areas with perfect delivery, but an impersonal one. As Rory summed it up, if your postman was a bit of a bastard, you didn't like Royal Mail. What mattered wasn't the visual ID, the advertising, or the operational excellence. What mattered was the person who knocked on the door. The lesson here, I think, is, this is actually a quote, no amount of advertising, no brand campaign, no operational metric can reliably manufacture the goodwill that a real live person can. I think that's such an interesting argument in the age of AI, too. Obviously, so many jobs are threatened by AI. And it's interesting if we are also valuing customer satisfaction, that is higher, at least in this anecdote, when people feel that they are met with a warm, friendly face. You see in so many movies people with good relationships to their posties.
Yeah. Never thought I'd be listening to a podcast with David Steiner, the new PMG, but I was listening to him featured on the USPS podcast called Mailin' It.
Oh!
And he was saying the same thing. Like, I think last year he was interviewed when he had been on the job for 3 months, and they were saying, like, how are you going to help support the USPS through this difficult time, which we'll get to in a little bit. And he just kept coming back to the fact that, like, we are nothing if we're not our team and our people. We need to make people feel like they are cared for in our streets and in our post offices.
And they have on their side like a legacy brand, basically. I just had this weird reaction in real time when you said, I never thought I'd be listening to a podcast with the current PMG, Postmaster General.
Yeah.
And something in me went like, oh, the feeling I had was like the feeling I have when I see old people eating alone.
Interesting. Well,
maybe it's something about like them working so hard and maybe not receiving gratitude.
There's certainly that. I also think there's an element of this that does feel of a different age that elicits a nostalgia, perhaps. Like there's an element of simplicity in the concept of I send you mail and you will get that mail.
Not only will you get that mail, but it'll be handed to you by
your
a
postie.
Jaunty little guy.
Yeah, exactly. Like
in a lovely little uniform.
I think it speaks to this connection in slower time that we might be lacking sometimes. There's something beautiful about the fact that you can be anywhere in the United States and mail will show up 6 days a week. Like that is a behemoth of a Goliath effort that they have to go through.
Yeah, we can't have behemoth beat the new dearth.
Keep me honest, I'm only using Goliath one more time.
Okay. You get one behemoth, one Goliath. Let's see what
Last episode, our friend realized that I had used the word dearth 3 times in one
Plus
episode.
in the dearth
Plus in the notes, in the show notes. Dearth was your Easter egg of the
just
show.
Get earwormed easily.
Totally. But I get what you're
something
saying.
That's really interesting.
There's something incredible about the fact that we are all connected if we can all at least get our mail 6 days a week. That is obviously an oversimplification in the age of technology, but it harkens back to a time where that really was the only way people were able to stay connected and get things.
Right. There's something about the reliability of that and the mandate that they have honored.
Yeah. The universal service obligation is what they call it.
You said yes and. There's something about the universal service obligation that is so comforting. And for some reason, my mind goes to like when I have experienced really deep depressions and have been able to identify small, reliable components of my day. Like that's why I was obsessed with the Today Show when I was living in New York and super depressed because every single morning I could wake up and listen to Hoda and Jenna talk about happier things for the most part.
Yeah.
And feel somewhat informed, but really it was mostly for the coziness. I'm curious how many people will resonate with that sentiment of like, it's nice to know my mail's going to show up and someone will be quote unquote checking
delivering
on me.
Yeah, no, I like that. That's true. When I was really homesick, when I was 18 living in San Francisco, the thing that brought me the most comfort was the grocery store because it looked the same as it did back home. Similar vibe.
Yeah, I felt that way in COVID.
I would literally go to the grocery store, just walk the aisles and be like, it looks just like home.
Aww.
But I completely get that sentiment. There is a level of like human care that is just implicit in that idea that someone is coming to deliver something to you 6 days a week.
Yeah. What we're kind of referring to here is the goodwill experienced by Americans towards the Postal Service.
Yeah.
Can you bring us back to where that originated?
Absolutely.
How'd they get their stellar rep?
Thank you for asking. Well, like
I come to my head, people.
You better give me a good transition for this history.
Oh my God, 251 years?
Well, if everyone's clocking, that's a year older than the United States of America. Before the United States was independent from England, the first post office was in an old tavern in Massachusetts with the sole purpose of sending letters back to England. The colonies, the 13 colonies, relied heavily on sending letters and notes back to England and Europe. It wasn't really used as a means of communication within the colonies. That really changed around the American Revolution when the Congress and the revolutionaries needed and required an underground network of communication to facilitate both planning before the war and then also during the war to understand where troops were and how to get supplies from one place or another. So that was the first time that these underground networks of letters and message passing started to occur within the colonies themselves.
Underground? Is that like the Royal Underground?
Yeah.
Underground Railroad kind of underground?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not through means of like official communication that had otherwise been established. Once the war was over, Benjamin Franklin, one of the founding fathers, said that the postal service is woven into America's DNA. It kind of facilitated this ability to orchestrate the American Revolution. And George Washington said it would link the country in a chain of communication that would never be broken. So in 1775, Benjamin Franklin became the first Postmaster General of the United States. He was convinced that these 13 colonies, now that they were independent from England, could only be strong if they came together as one, and that communication was necessary for that. So he was really, really intent on improving the connectedness of the 13 colonies.
The written word, obviously, is far more important in a time when you don't have the option like a phone or a telegram.
Town criers were the other option. But this also like facilitated the town crier in a way, which I
always thought you know how people will be like, if you were in medieval times or whatever, like what would your role be?
Yeah.
I would definitely be the town crier.
You would be the town crier.
What would you be?
I would like to think I would be the midwife.
Oh.
I would like to give myself role of midwife.
Help me with birthing my baby.
Yeah. And you cry. Okay, and this was especially important because they were trying out this great experiment of democracy. We know it was a deeply flawed way of doing democracy in the context of who was free and who was able to vote.
Right.
The basis of a democracy is an informed electorate. So democracy requires voters to be informed of the issues.
I love that point. Yes.
And to vote on them. So the early postal service was really rooted in subsidizing sending newspapers to citizens to inform the people and create what was called back then an enlightened postal policy, which was basically creating this political discourse that we have today that's deeply rooted in our culture. The vision of the USPS was to provide an informal education to people far and wide across the colonies.
Were newspapers delivered by the USPS?
Yes, it would be newspapers, pamphlets. It was really costly to send a letter in the mail. It was usually only wealthy people sending letters. That money was used to then subsidize political pamphlets, etc. Most of the post offices were actually in print shops because as soon as kind of westward expansion in our country started to grow, news would spread, but only as quickly as it was able to get to someone who could spread it further.
Right.
So often someone would get a letter of something that had happened, let's say in Massachusetts. If they opened it at the print shop where that location was for the post office, then they'd read it and then the printer could then, print off 15 copies of a pamphlet that then could go spread it further. Yeah. So it was very much this like ad hoc diffusing of news. But at the time, it was still quite slow, obviously. It was just used with horses, etc.
Lady Whistledown.
Yeah, think of Lady Whistledown, that sort of pamphlet. And Congress, nascent baby Congress, would vote on the routes of where and what cities should be connected and how.
Nascent out of your ass?
I did.
Wow.
Was that a good one?
It's amazing.
Only used once.
Yeah.
And no more nascents. Then the postal service itself would figure out what routes to, like, what the roads should be. So let's say I'm going to connect Boston to New York. The Congress says you have to figure out how to connect those two major cities. And then the postal service would say, okay, which roads connect the most amount of people? Which roads have the most commerce? Which ones have the most amount of literal courts, as in like legal courts along the way?
Yeah.
Because there was so much at the time of laws being passed and challenged and our constitution being drafted and ratified. So courts were kind of like where the news was being developed to and what you needed people to be literate on to therefore inform the democracy.
Wow.
So they literally made these routes based off of courts, citizens, and commerce is what they said. And this kind of extended all the way into the gold rush. Well, let me pause there. How are we feeling about the history?
I'm feeling like an informed citizen.
It does make me sad that I don't get my paper in the mail anymore.
I know.
But better for the environment.
Yeah. We can say that.
And by the way, at this point in time, people had to go to their postal stop, whether that was the tavern, whether that was the print shop, to post a letter and to pick up their mail. So there wasn't like at-home delivery. That came much later.
Talk about a third place.
Yeah, exactly. Communication.
I mean,
and you
at that
could
time,
learn.
There were so many. But
You could learn about the news from your neighbor's mail, which, by the way, you could literally pick up someone else's mail as long as you could pay for it. So at the time, there was something called payment on delivery, which is where if your person who sent the letter hadn't paid for it, they would send it and you could only get it if you wanted to pay for it.
Okay.
So it's like, how badly do you want the information? Kind of. Some people would just not pay for it and then they wouldn't get the letter. But it was kind of this like ad hoc, crazy spreading of word if you think about it. People would open at the tavern and read out, and that's how people shared news. The first posties were all horseback riders.
Oh.
They would deliver along the roads created by the government for these purposes, and people would wait in long, long lines to get their mail. This changed in World War II this changed in the Civil War.
Okay.
Different war. Different. Imagine if I was like, this changed in 1940. This changed in the Civil War for quite a sad reason.
Okay.
The first home delivery was created because all of these wives and sisters and mothers of soldiers in the North who were off fighting the war would be writing letters to their family members who were off fighting to send to the front. And often what would happen is that they would show up to post a letter at their public post office, and the postmaster would look at the name and say, "Excuse me, ma'am, 1 second," go back into the back and pull out a package of the soldiers' belongings with a note from the sergeant or whoever was in charge saying, "We're so sorry to alert you of the death of your son." There would be these massive outpourings of grief and sadness constantly in these public places.
Right. I was just thinking that as you were saying, like, everyone was getting their news in the tavern. At the time, because, like you said earlier, mail was kind of limited to the people who could pay for it, you're having very infrequent messages, but of greater importance coming through.
Yes.
So if you're there, you're probably getting big news of some manner. Everyone around you is getting big news. Like, my longtime lover has ended things, or my aunt died.
Yes, exactly. There was backlash from I would say there was deep concern. The Postmaster General of the Union was like, this is too sad. It's too upsetting to watch this grief unfold, and it's not fair to these women to learn about their loved ones passing in this public way. And so that was what started at-home delivery of mail. That was what made them realize, okay, we should devote dollars and boots on the ground providing at-home delivery service so people can receive news in the sanctity of their own home.
Right.
And it should be said that the Union had more money to play with because they no longer were supporting postal service in the Southern Confederate States. Isn't that a crazy story?
Just one sec. Donk, donk, donk. Got a heavy step.
Love you. Have you heard of the Pony Express?
Yes.
I feel like I've heard of the Pony Express. I can picture it as the wagon on the Wells Fargo markup. And I feel like it must have been a huge part of the USPS history because I just always heard of people yelling, "The Pony Express is here," and like going and getting their goods and stuff. So I thought that must have been, crucial to how consumer goods and mail was delivered throughout our country. But it was basically this big experiment from this entrepreneur in the 1860s, right before Abraham Lincoln was elected. And there was knowledge that this was going to cause a rift in our country. So this American businessman was like, I would really like to be a part of and get the contract for the overland, as in by land, delivery of mail and goods from USPS. And I'm going to prove that I can cut down the time going from the East Coast to the West Coast from 25 days to 10 days.
Whoa.
So he instituted this Pony Express, which was essentially just a line of riders that would ride 100 miles, change horses every 15 miles. And then once they reached their 100 mark, the other rider would pick it up. And they were going so fast whenever they could. It was a relay race. Exactly. They were basically all young, tiny teenage boys riding because they had to be really light and skinny. And it was really dangerous. They went over the Donner Pass, which,
oh my God,
like scary times.
Yeah.
And then it only lasted for 18 months and they did less than 400 runs. But people are so fascinated by it. It's this like legend, I feel like. And I was looking into why it's become so much a part of this legend of the US. And I think it really ties into this concept of it ties into our country's fascination with our history, as problematic as it has been, with ruggedness and expansion and like man versus nature and conquering the West. And it's so interesting to me that there's elements of USPS that is so much more grounded in like American identity, democracy, this westward expansion than I would have known before thinking about this. And maybe even subliminally, that's why you and I also have these feelings of like, oh, when we think about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe. That could very well be. It might have been this sentiment that's grandfathered in.
Totally.
As an American. That's interesting to think about.
Even as problematic as some of that is.
Right. The history you mentioned, especially with regards to the Postal Service's role in upholding democracy and propagating information that is helpful in upholding a democracy and understanding the politics of our nation, is really interesting because I think a lot these days about mail-in voting. Yeah. I've said this before, but my two jobs outside of this are fact-checking and copy editing for a free press outlet that's called The Contrarian. And a lot of what we do is highlight contributors who are looking to uphold democracy and hold our representatives to account. And then also Talking Feds is the podcast that I help produce. One of our frequent guests on the podcast is this man named Mark Elias, who is the founder of Democracy Docket. And I saw they published something about mail-in voting recently, which has come up a lot in like our Q&As for the podcast. Everyone's kind of wondering how can we protect mail-in voting from Trump and his cronies. And in this piece, they say, in California's November 2025 election, mail-in ballot rejections quadrupled compared to 2024.
Oh my God.
So about 8 out of every 1,000 ballots were rejected for arriving late, according to a Los Angeles Times review of voter data. Recent changes to how the U.S. Postal Service, USPS, collects and postmarks mail may explain why and could signal future problems if President Donald Trump is granted more federal control over mail-in ballot measures. Okay, what they attribute as the main driver here for those issues with mail-in ballots and their subsequent rejections was this new USPS policy that mail in some areas, especially those that are far from the processing centers, are no longer postmarked the same day that they're dropped off necessarily. So ballots that are mailed on election day may now get postmarked the next day, which is legally late, and therefore those are not counted.
And just to say that the state law has said that as long as your mail-in ballot is postmarked on or before election day, it can arrive
up to 5
days late
after election day.
Yeah.
But only if they're postmarked on time.
Yeah. And is that also at stake right now? That law in and of itself?
Despite voting by mail himself, Trump signed a sweeping executive order this week that instructs the USPS to issue mail-in ballots exclusively to voters on approved federal lists and modifies current ballot envelopes with barcodes for federal tracking. The executive order was immediately avalanched by dozens of lawsuits declaring it unconstitutional. So the concern is that additional federal interventions in mail voting could amplify these kinds of logistical barriers, especially for voters who rely on mail ballots. So I kind of wanted to do some research into who is it that mail-in voting is really critical for. And it's a lot of populations.
Love that.
It's disproportionately used by specific groups, often because it's the most practical and accessible option.
Right.
A lot of the data I was finding was from this website called Center for Election Confidence. And I wanted to make sure that, you can't always trust these sources, but I did research, and the Center for Election Confidence has no parent corporation and no publicly held company owns a significant stake. So it's not owned by a company, billionaire, or government.
Okay.
It was formerly called Lawyers Democracy Fund, and it operates as a legal advocacy and research group focused on election policy and litigation. So all this feels pretty above board because I wanted to get really reliable information here since we can't necessarily trust our federal government. So seniors are the heaviest users of Seniors are the most common users of mail ballots, reasons being mobility, health concerns, convenience, and many are longtime habitual absentee voters, and that predated COVID. There's also people with disabilities and health conditions, so people who can't easily stand in line for long periods of time or travel or navigate polling places. Mail voting is often a primary accessibility tool, not just as a convenience. Then we have rural voters. These are people living far from polling locations. Mail voting reduces long distance travel and limited polling access for those people. Then we have people with rigid or unpredictable schedules. That's like shift workers, for example, service industry, healthcare, gig workers, caregivers, parents. Mail voting for them allows them to avoid needing to carve out time on a single day that might not work with their work schedule or, other obligations. Then we have frequent movers and renters like young voters, students, and transient populations. Mail voting helps when registration and location are in flux. And finally, the last two are military and overseas voters. One of the original use cases actually for absentee ballots was military voters and those overseas who were working for the government. And lastly, first time or lower propensity voters.
Yeah, it certainly breaks down the barrier.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I'm in my house, I can fill out this ballot.
Totally.
Yeah.
So according to the MIT election lab, 1 in 3 voters, or roughly 32%, vote by mail. And that was data from 2022. So that's updated, I assume, but still relevant to protect such a commonly used service in our country and make sure it's not meddled with by people seeking political gain.
And that's even going further than just Trump trying to make it harder for USPS to process these things on time. The Supreme Court also just heard on March 23rd arguments against even allowing late ballots to arrive and be counted.
So the 5-day grace period for California, that wouldn't count?
Yeah.
Wow.
So if justices ban the counting of late arriving ballots, it would mean that millions of voters will have their ballots overturned in the midterm elections coming up this year. And also just puts that much more pressure on the fact that it is forcing people to, think about things in a way that's completely new of like getting to these things on time. It forced the post office to do processes in a different way. And clearly Trump is trying to meddle with those processes as well. So yeah, there's a lot of people's votes on the line here. Scary.
Yeah. I guess that's also insofar as it's not well publicized that the rule has changed.
Right, exactly. Like if they don't do
Which
that,
I assume they won't publicize.
They won't do that. Totally. Oh, crazy. Well, it is. I love that you brought that to the fact that the post office is deeply intertwined with democracy.
Yeah.
That said, I didn't realize this, but the post office isn't paid by taxes.
Yeah. I didn't realize that either. I was so shocked when I read that. Yeah.
It's really just out on its own trying to make money from parcels and stamps.
Yeah.
And it's been losing $9 billion a year as a result.
Wonderful.
It's in really grave danger. I could leave it at that.
True. Say less.
And it's not the only global postal service that's having these issues. Denmark ended its 400-year-long letter delivery service in December. So it no longer has a public postal service. It now relies on digital first, quote unquote, companies who are owning letter service, which is so sad. And imagine that
because they were losing so much money.
Yes. And that is very much on the line. Our current PMG testified before Congress this year saying it's very likely the USPS will run out of money by October of this year. And he's coming to Congress asking for either the ability to raise the price of stamps, which is capped right now by Congress, raise the permissible deficit level for USPS, or take away Saturday mail. Which all of these things would help. Yeah. But remains to be seen what's going to happen.
I don't think I even knew we were getting mail on Saturdays.
It's part of the universal mandate.
Wow.
6 days a week.
You heard.
Yeah, so there's a lot going on at USPS right now.
Yeah.
It's kind of at the center of a lot. If USPS was to go away right now, I think there'd be a lot of people at risk of not getting medications in time. A lot of people at risk of their votes not being counted. Yep. And from a sentimental value, I think there'd be a lot of people that'd be really sad.
I agree.
About the fact that this element of our country's gone. How would you feel?
I would feel sad. I'm trying to think of the ways in which I personally benefit from mail right now. And it's mostly for wedding invitations, which are just sweet, but not honestly necessary, because you can get those visually. Yeah. I think it's mostly in my life, it would be like the romantic purposes, because I've automated electronically a lot of the like
bills and stuff.
Bills things. But for an older generation, that would be challenging.
And not just older. I think a lot of like rural areas still use USPS a lot.
Yeah.
For things like medication and stuff. Like I get meds delivered.
You do?
Yeah.
I should do that.
It's so nice. And that's convenience. I think there are a lot of people in a position where they rely on USPS for things that they use every day. Magazines, not really. In my head, in my youth, magazines were like the devil.
What?
Because in 4th grade, we had a whole...
magazine sale.
No.
Oh. We did.
We actually quite the opposite.
Yeah.
We had a cancel magazine challenge because it's such a waste of paper. And my 4th grade teacher was really, really good at getting us fired up about protecting our environment.
Speaking of westward expansion, that cause hadn't made its way to California.
Meanwhile, you were pumping magazines back to the
Literally,
system.
I like got to had my choice of reward for selling the most magazines.
What? Okay, so I remember going to my grandparents' house, neighbors' houses, begging them to give me all their magazines. And then I would call the tiny number in the back and be like, hi, please cancel the subscription.
Oh my God.
To Jim and Lynn Taylor, blah, blah, blah. And then the next month I'd show up and it'd be there again. I'd be like, nothing's working.
See, I had to solicit subscriptions from my fellow townspeople. We wanted a freaking pizza party.
You know what? Fair enough.
I won't get too far into this, but it's worth saying that if you've ever wondered who is choosing what stamps are offered.
Well, I actually was, because I'm sending out our wedding invite soon.
Oh!
And I just bulk ordered 200 stamps. And I was looking through the USPS website being like, is this pretty? So,
oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I wish I was
timely.
doing that. Yeah. So there's the Citizens Stamp Advisory Committee, which advises the U.S. Postmaster General, PMG, who heads the United States Postal Service. The USPS describes the committee's function as follows. Using their collective expertise in history, science, technology, art, education, sports, and other areas of public interest, CSAC members consider and then recommend...
They need a rebrand. CSAC?
And on it.
Okay.
CSAC members consider and then recommend stamp subjects to the PMG, who makes the final selections. Wow, he has a lot of power. I find this interesting. Okay, any member of the public can submit a proposal for a stamp subject. There are a lot of criteria that outline what are eligible subjects that you can propose. I think this is done 3 to 4 years ahead of time.
Wow.
Let me see. Roughly 40,000 ideas are submitted each year, and of these, roughly 25 proposals are selected by the CSAC and passed on to the Postmaster General for approval. And there's all these guidelines guidelines around like every deceased president gets a memorial stamp. National disasters can only be commemorated once it's been 50 years. Oh my God, I have 52 texts. That's crazy.
Not letter writing. I do think I would have
been.
been happier in a time of letter writing than text.
Me too.
All else being equal, my rights, access to healthcare,
Yeah.
etc. If I were to live in an age of letter writing, I'd be happy.
Me too.
What's the most recent letter you've received?
Oh, this was really sweet. I hosted friends for a weekend like a month ago, and 2 of them asked for my address after.
Did you know what was coming?
I had a sense. Lucy Faust is always one to write a thank you note. It was drilled into her early in life, and boy, does she follow through. She's the sweetest. She sent me a little gift and a note. My other friend sent me a thank you letter. It was actually a postcard from, they had gone on to like Colorado or something afterwards.
That's so sweet.
Yeah, really sweet. Just thanking me.
Don't you ever wonder if our posties read our postcards?
Yeah.
I went on a Reddit thread and
too dang busy.
They do.
They do.
No, I think that was a joke. It was this one person who was like, I made connections with this one house because there were so many postcards sent every single week. And finally I was like, I just love that you have all these postcards. What are they from? And they made this connection. There's a lively Reddit thread amongst post people.
Cool.
Often are horror stories of people opening the door naked.
Oh.
Neither here nor there. But smile at your postman and woman.
And wear clothes.
Extra hard and wear clothes.
Tuck that robe in.
Tie it tight.
Tie it tight.
My most recent postcard was from my dad, who was on a boys' trip over to England with 3 of his good guy friends to watch soccer and, wait for it, do a Jane Austen tour.
Oh, adorable.
Really good combo. And he was inspired by a friend who is very much a letter writer to send me and my sister and my mom, each of us, a letter. Mine is pictures of the scenes from Pride and Prejudice, the book by Jane Austen, which is one of my favorite movies, the one with Keira Knightley, of course. And he wrote it in the tone of a 19th century father. My dear eldest daughter. And he ends it with, I remain as ever your devoted father. And it was just so much fun to receive. Cute. It made me laugh so hard. I was a little bit like, has he lost his mind? And then put 2 and 2 together that he probably was inspired by his friend.
Right.
But it's really cute. That sentiment doesn't come through in a text or an email.
Yeah, not in the same way.
Not in the same way.
Well, goodness gracious, I'm never going to think of the Postal Service the same again.
No, and I'm also going to try to send things through the Postal Service more than UPS.
Hey, don't make an enemy here. But no, I agree. I will too.
Not that I'm single-handedly going to save USPS, but I do think we're on the brink of not having it.
According to the PGM.
According to the PMG.
God, according to the PMG, that's true.
In plain sight at its best.
In plain sight, right under our noses. Love you.
Love you. Thank you, Phoebe Fry, for this episode's music.
And thank you, Emily Kiernan, for the beautiful cover art.
If you like this episode, please like, share, and leave a comment. And we'll see you next week.